the message that started it all. The message came without warning, a bright flash in the sky, followed by a deep hum that shook the air around Earth's satellites. The signal carried no words, just coordinates, a countdown, and a symbol no human had seen before. Leaders around the world stared at screens in silence. It wasn't a threat, but it wasn't friendly either. When the countdown ended, something massive appeared above the moon, a ship, larger than anything Earth had ever built. The alien vessel hovered silently for hours. Then, without warning, it sent a single drone to Earth's surface. The drone landed near one of Earth's oldest military bases. It opened and a voice spoke in hundreds of languages. "You have advanced too quickly. This sector belongs to the High Order. You are now under our rule. Obey or be removed." The world went into panic. News spread fast. Earth was not alone, and whoever had found them came not to talk, but to conquer. The leaders of Earth held an emergency meeting. They called it the Response Council. Scientists, generals, and diplomats from every country joined. Most wanted to avoid war. But others, especially the ones who studied the drone, believed peace was no longer an option. The alien technology was hundreds of years ahead. But Earth had something else: desperation, unity, and rage. The High Order returned, after 7 days expecting surrender. Instead, they were met with silence. Earth had made its choice. The first shot was fired from the alien ship. A beam of light destroyed a military satellite. The second shot came from Earth, a swarm of hypersonic missiles aimed straight at the drone's launch site. That day became known as the first strike. It was also the last day the High Order underestimated humans. What followed wasn't a war of honor. It was survival. Humanity threw everything it had: old weapons, new tech, even experimental AI. Earth's skies were filled with fire and chaos, but humans didn't just fight to win. They fought to prove a point. No one controls Earth. The alien fleet lost its first ship within 3 days. They responded by bringing more from nearby systems. Earth responded by turning their moon bases into traps. What looked like simple research stations became deadly strongholds. Still, it wasn't enough. The High Order had numbers. They had centuries of experience. Earth was fighting a giant, and it was starting to bleed. But then something changed. Signal was sent from Earth to a hidden base in deep space. It was not built by governments. It was built in secret, by thinkers, dreamers, and outcasts. A group of human scientists had left Earth decades ago, building what they called Project Ember. They had predicted this moment. They had built something the aliens weren't ready for, and now, Earth was ready to use it. Project Ember awakens far, beyond the orbit of Pluto, hidden in a cloud of frozen dust. Project Ember came online. For years it had been silent. The facility had no contact with Earth after it was built. The people who worked on it were thought to be missing, even dead. But in truth, they were waiting for the moment when Earth needed something more than weapons, a way to win without becoming like their enemies. The message from Earth reached the deep space base, and within hours, everything changed. Giant reactors lit up. Drones the size of trucks moved through long tunnels. Data flooded into ancient computers and new plans formed within seconds. At the center of Project Ember was a man named Dale. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a leader. He was a builder, one of the few who had helped design Ember from the ground up. His face was older now, his eyes tired, but his spirit burned brighter than ever. When the signal came in, he looked at the others and simply said, "It's time." The Ember scientists had created something new. Not a weapon, but a rewriting of the rules. They had studied alien tech long before the High Order had arrived. They had built machines that could bend space, shift gravity, and move faster than light, but they had kept it secret, knowing the world wasn't ready. Now the world had no choice. Dale and his team powered up the Torch, a sleek black vessel hidden beneath the ice. It was not large, but it was fast, faster than anything. the High Order had ever seen. It didn't have heavy guns or armor. It had something more dangerous: intelligence, precision, and purpose. The torch launched into the void, disappearing from sight in a burst of energy. It reappeared near Earth's orbit minutes later, just outside the battle zone. The alien fleet didn't see it at first. Their scanners weren't made to detect something that moved faster than thought, but they noticed when one of their main control ships suddenly vanished, pulled into a black hole that hadn't existed a second before. Panic spread through the alien ranks. This wasn't human weaponry. This was something else, something that could break the laws of physics. More ships followed, not destroyed, but taken, pulled away, vanished, silenced. On Earth, the Response Council watched in disbelief. The tide of war was turning. Not because Earth had more power, but because it had something unexpected. And yet Dale knew this wasn't the end. The aliens would adapt. They always did. So he gave the next order: begin Phase 2. While the battles raged above Earth, something was happening below the surface. Old bunkers were being activated. Long-forgotten machines were waking up. Project Ember had not only built the torch, it had seeded hidden tech across the planet, waiting for this moment. Devices that could protect cities, disrupt alien minds, and change how humans fought. The aliens called for reinforcements from across the galaxy, but every time more arrived, Earth had already evolved. It was learning, faster than they could follow, and then the first alien ship surrendered. A high-order vessel sent out a signal, not of strength but of fear. They had seen what the torch could do. They had watched entire fleets vanish. They had heard strange human transmissions saying, "This is only the beginning." The galaxy watched in silence. Earth wasn't just fighting back anymore. It was changing, the rules of war, and no one knew what would come next. The surrender that shook the stars. The first surrender was unexpected. A high-order ship, massive and armed with plasma cannons, sent a clear message across every known frequency. "We yield. Do not erase us." The message wasn't directed only at Earth, it was meant for the rest of the galaxy. A warning, a cry, a sign that something had gone very wrong. Until now, the High Order had ruled through fear. They were old, powerful, and used to winning. Entire species had bowed before them. But now, they had met someone who did not bow. And worse, they had met someone who could do the unthinkable. When the news spread that one of their ships had surrendered to a younger, weaker species, panic took root in the High Order's council chambers. They met in secret, their faces twisted, in disbelief. Some called for a full retreat. Others wanted vengeance. But the truth was clear: they had underestimated humanity. Back on Earth, the Response Council reviewed the alien ship's message. It was genuine. The crew asked for shelter, even offering to trade knowledge and data. The Council agreed, carefully. The alien vessel was escorted to a secure orbit near Mars, guarded by Earth's new defense drones. Dale watched it all from Project Ember's command deck. "It begins," he said. He knew this was more than surrender. It was the breaking of belief. If one ship gave up, more might follow. And if the High Order lost their grip on fear, they would lose everything. So Ember moved to Phase 3. A second Torch-class ship launched, this one carrying a message, not weapons. It entered alien space and sent a broadcast to every system that had been under High Order control. Earth was not the first. You are not alone. Rise, fight, or stand aside. The old order ends now. At first, no one responded. Planets, still, feared punishment. But then a small mining world in Sector 9 sent back a message: "We will not serve." The rebellion began. The High Order scrambled to hold on to power. But everywhere, small sparks of resistance appeared. Alien colonies refusing to obey. Scientists leaking hidden tech. Merchants refusing to pay tribute. Humanity had become more than a fighter. It had become a symbol. Still, not all celebrated. On the edge of the galaxy, a dark armada began to gather. These were not high-order ships. They belonged to a silent faction that had watched everything unfold. They had stayed hidden, waiting for the strongest to fall. And now, with the high order breaking, they saw an opening. This new threat didn't send messages. They didn't demand surrender. They simply moved, swift, silent, and cold. Ember detected them first. Dale stood before the growing data and whispered, "We woke something." Humanity had changed the game, but now the game was about to change them. The galaxy watched Earth with new eyes, not as prey, not as a threat, but as something strange, something terrifying, something unknown. And Dale knew the war was far from over. War had just been the beginning. The Shadow Fleet in. The black silence between stars. The Shadow Fleet moved without light, without signal, and without sound. They had no name in any known database. No history, no records. Only a few ancient species whispered stories about them. Stories of planets that vanished, of civilizations that disappeared overnight. Some called them the Forgotten, others called them the Cleaners. Whatever they were, they had watched the High Order fall into chaos, and now they turned their cold attention to Earth. Back at Project Ember, Dale stared at the new scans. "They're not part of the High Order," he said quietly. "They didn't even react when we destroyed the fleet. They waited. And now, they're moving." The Ember systems lit up in warning. 20 ships. No, 40. No identifiable engines. No energy signatures. Just shadows sliding through space like ghosts. Earth's leaders were alarmed. The war had nearly broken them. Cities had been rebuilt, alliances formed, and refugees rescued. Hope was growing again. And now, the Response Council wanted to defend Earth. "More weapons," they said. "More shields. Build more torches. We must strike first." But Dale disagreed. "This is not like before. They are not here to fight a war. They are here to erase, and we need to understand what they are before we disappear." So Project Ember sent a probe. Small, fast, and hidden, it slipped into the darkness and followed the shadow ships for hours. What it saw shocked everyone. These weren't just warships. They were harvesters. The probe recorded a small moon being pulled apart. Not bombed, not burned, but unwritten. Matter collapsed into itself. Time around the wreck bent strangely. The moon did not explode. It ceased to exist. The Ember team froze. This was not destruction. It was deletion. "These things aren't killing worlds," Dale whispered. "They're removing them from reality." Suddenly, the probe sent a burst of data, then went dark. It had been noticed. The shadows were no longer heading toward Earth. They were racing toward it. Panic spread through Earth's command networks. Satellites lost signal. Drones vanished. A base on Neptune's moon stopped responding. For the first time, even the most confident leaders felt true fear. But Dale wasn't done. He activated Ember's hidden protocol, the mirror signal. It sent a call deep into space to all the species who had ever been oppressed by the High Order. Not a message of leadership, but of warning. "A greater threat is coming. We cannot stand alone. If you can hear this, stand with us. Or be next." At first, silence. Then a soft reply. A scientist race from a gas giant system offered cloaking tech. A reptilian warrior tribe pledged soldiers. A species that communicated with sound pulses sent map data of ancient shadow encounters. The galaxy answered. Earth was no longer a single world. It was becoming a center of resistance. Back at Ember, Dale received one final encrypted file. It came from a forgotten satellite hidden in deep orbit from the early days of space exploration. It contained a voice, an old Earth astronaut who had vanished decades ago. In the file, the astronaut spoke in a quiet tone. "If you're hearing this, it means they've come back. I saw them. We weren't ready then, but maybe now, someone will be." The galaxy held its breath. Earth had survived the high order, but the real test was coming, and this time, survival might not be enough. Earth stands at the edge. The shadows were near. One of the Shadow Fleet's ships appeared in Earth's outer system, just beyond Pluto. It didn't fire. It didn't speak. It simply watched. No signals. No movement. Just a massive dark shape, blocking stars from view. The world below was silent. In underground bunkers and orbiting stations, soldiers and scientists waited. Civilian ships stayed docked. Everyone knew this wasn't a normal enemy. The High Order had wanted control. But these things wanted nothing left. In Project Ember, Dale met with the new Resistance Alliance, representatives from 10 different species who had responded to the mirror signal. Their faces were unfamiliar, but their fear was not. They had all lost people, worlds, history. Dale spoke first. Earth survived the High Order by adapting, by pushing beyond fear. That won't work here. This enemy doesn't want to rule us. It wants to erase us like we were never here. A voice responded, translated through Ember's AI. Then how do we fight what doesn't want anything? Dale pointed to a hologram. We don't just fight, we reveal. Project Ember had found a pattern. Every time the Shadow Fleet attacked a system, it left behind strange distortions in time and space. Like something had been folded or overwritten. The distortions were most intense where the enemy ships had gathered. One of Ember's researchers, a quiet woman named Mia, had found a strange code hidden in the distortions. It wasn't language. It wasn't signal. It was coordinates. Dale believed the Shadow Fleet wasn't acting alone. It was being guided. That changed everything. If they could find the source, whatever it was, they could disrupt the control. Maybe even stop the erasures. The new plan began. A team of humans and alien allies volunteered for a mission no one expected to survive. They would take the Torch 2, equipped with Ember's cloaking field, into the distortion zone near Pluto's edge. Their goal: trace the Shadow Fleet's connection back to its source. The Torch 2 launched silently. Meanwhile, on Earth, Ember prepared its final backup, the Earth Key. It was not a weapon. It was a seed, a small device containing all human knowledge, language, art, science, even personal memories. If Earth was lost, the key would be launched into deep space, protected by alien shielding. A hope that someone, somewhere, would know. Humanity once existed. Dale stared at it for a long time before sealing it. If we vanish, he said, let them remember we mattered. As the Torch 2 approached the edge of the system, it slipped into the distortion field. Space rippled around it. Lights inside the ship dimmed. Instruments stopped working. Then, everything went still. And they saw it. Not a ship, not a station, but a hole in reality itself. Like someone had torn the fabric of the universe and stitched something else inside. The crew stared in silence. From within that hole, a pulse spread across the stars. A deep, low sound that made the stars themselves flicker. Earth felt it. So did every species in the Resistance. It was not just a signal, it was a warning. And it was saying only one thing: you are not real. Part 5, complete. The truth beyond the rift, the message, you are not real, echoed across the systems like a silent scream. On board Torch 2, the crew stood frozen. The rift they faced pulsed with unnatural energy, a gash in space surrounded by silence. No stars twinkled near it. No light entered it. It was pure nothing. But within that nothing, there was a shape. The sensors, once overwhelmed, flickered to life. What they revealed made no sense. It was a structure, but not one made of metal or stone. It looked like a folded web of memories, echoes, and broken time. As if someone had built a machine out of forgotten thoughts. Mia, monitoring from Ember, gasped. It's not a ship. It's a recorder. What do you mean? Dale asked. She zoomed in on a strange pattern forming around the rift. It stores what it erases. It doesn't destroy. It archives. The realization hit them all, at once. The Shadow Fleet didn't delete civilizations randomly. It was collecting them one by one. Recording reality like files in a library, an ancient living archive that only accepted full obedience or complete silence. And now, it had reached Earth's page. But humans don't get filed away easily. Dale made his decision. We go in. Back. On Torch 2, the team activated the ship's distortion shield and entered the rift. Time bent instantly. Clocks ran backward. People saw memories of things they had never done. One crew member wept as he heard a lullaby his mother had never sung. But the ship held together. Inside the rift, the structure expanded. Walls formed from the energy of lost planets. Floating orbs flickered with the colors of vanished stars. And in the center, a giant core pulsed slowly, each beat erasing another corner of the galaxy. It wasn't a machine. It was a mind. Not alive like a creature, but alive like gravity. It did not care, did not hate. It simply functioned. Its purpose: catalog, store, replace. Torch 2 moved close. Mia's voice came through the comms. You need to make it understand we're not just data. But how? The pilot asked. It doesn't speak. Dale's voice cut in. Then we speak through action. Inside the ship was a single device, a memory core containing the Earth key. Dale had sent a copy with them just in case. They launched it into the center of the mind. The rift shook. The memory of Earth, its laughter, its wars, its art, its pain, hit the structure like a storm. The mind didn't understand. It had never been challenged. It had never been told, we are more than a file. For the first time, the rift pulsed out not a warning, but a question. What are you? And the torch replied, we are human. A surge of light burst outward, knocking the ship away. Across space, every shadow ship paused. Their black shells cracked. Some stopped moving. Others turned and vanished into hyperspace. The rift began to collapse. The structure folded inward on itself, pulsing faster and faster. Whatever intelligence lay within it was shaken, not destroyed but changed. It now had a memory it couldn't erase. Back on Earth, people looked to the stars and saw the dark cloud retreat. Dale stepped outside Project Ember for the first time in weeks. The sky above him was full of stars again. We didn't win, he whispered. But we didn't lose either. Earth had survived something greater than war. It had made the universe remember it. Humanity becomes the message. The stars returned. With the collapse of the rift, the skies above Earth cleared. The dark distortion fields vanished. The last shadow ships either froze in space or vanished into the void. No attacks followed. No signals came. The galaxy, for the first time in generations, was quiet. But it wasn't the peace of silence. It was the calm after something vast had shifted. Humanity had faced something it didn't understand. Not a war for power, not a fight for territory, but a challenge to its very existence. And it endured. In orbit, Torch 2 drifted back into normal space. Its systems flickered with damage, but the crew was alive. They had carried the message into the heart of the unknown and returned. They weren't warriors. They were witnesses. Earth welcomed them like heroes, but Project Ember knew the real work had just begun. Inside the Ember facility, Dale sat in the command room, speaking to leaders from dozens of alien species. They had seen Earth stand against the High Order. Then they had seen Earth face a force beyond logic and speak back. Many now looked to Earth not as a battlefield, but as a center of hope. Dale wasn't interested in becoming a ruler. He spoke to them plainly. We are not the strongest, not the oldest, not the wisest, but we learn, we adapt, and most of all, we remember. The galaxy listened. Over the next months, Earth helped rebuild colonies destroyed by the High Order. Scientists from different species came to study with humans. Torch-class ships began patrolling sectors not to conquer but to protect. They carried no banners, only a signal in many languages. Exist. Resist. Remember. The Earth Key, the seed of human memory, was duplicated and shared. Not just for protection but as a gift. Every allied species created their own version, filling it with stories, songs, and truths. The galaxy was no longer a cold place full of silence. It was alive with voices, and yet some questions remained unanswered. Where had the Shadow Fleet come from? Who built the mind in the rift? Was it still out there, waiting? Dale believed it was, but he also believed something had changed. Humanity had not beaten the threat with bigger weapons. It had survived by being itself, by standing tall, by daring to say we matter. And whatever that thing was out there in the dark, it now remembered Earth. The closing days of the war became known as the Shifting, and from it, a new galactic alliance was born, not ruled by fear but by shared memory. For the first time, Earth was not alone. It was not the beginning of another war. It was the beginning of something greater, a beacon in the stars, and at its heart, a message. War was just the beginning. What came next was the future.